Hello, media friends, moms and dads. Welcome to the digital premiere of Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. My name is Megan Tan, your fellow Malaysian parent and host for today. In just a few moments, I will be talking to 4 professionals from various relevant fields to learn how we can better support the development of our next generation. Please allow me to introduce them to you. They are Dr. Rajini Sarvananthan, Consultant General and Developmental Paediatrician from Baby and Beyond Child Specialist Clinic, Dr. Yong Junina Fadzil, Consultant Paediatrician and Pediatric Cardiologist from Klinik Pakar Kanak-kanak Junina, Dr. Alvin Ng Lai Un, Professor, Department of Psychology, Sunway University, and Wendy Goh, Scientific and Nutrition Manager, Fonterra Brands Malaysia. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the terms baby boomers, Gen X, Y, and Z. Have you ever wondered how about children from 1 to 6 years old? Now, this is something that I've learned recently as well. Children up to 10 years of age, they are known as Gen Alpha. They are the second generation of digital natives born into the world of social media, smart devices, and instant accessibility to information. I personally feel the term Gen Alpha is so apt because I have a 2.5-year-old. And I must tell you that he most certainly displays all the characteristics of an alpha. He's bossy, he's demanding, and it still surprises me today how fast he learns how to use a smartphone by just watching us. So for us parents, we grew up in a less digitized world. We only learn to work and socialize on digital platforms as adults. And in order for us to understand how to support our children's development, it is key to be aware of the world they will grow up in. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely brought a lot of changes and created unprecedented disruption to our daily lives. One of which is, of course, being forced to stay at home with our children in the early weeks of MCO with no school, no music or sports classes to send them to, not even outdoor play, no enjoying meals at a cafe, restaurant, or shopping together. For more than 3 months, my son was frequently asking to go to the toy store or supermarket, so the best we could do was just get into the car and play pretend. Most of our children's stay-at-home activities have shifted on screen with e-learning, online games, and entertainment. Even someone like me who believes in minimal screen time, I've caved. Not just the children, even adults are picking up new skills, learning to cook, to bake, to exercise, and hold work meetings online. Look at us now. We are having a conversation online. This disruption has made it even more evident that technology and the digital world will continue to advance and shape the way our children grow and develop. Something that is fundamental amongst all parents is that we want to continue to support our children's all-rounded growth and development. And as we adapt to the new norms, it is important to rethink how to support the development of an all-rounded child with the increasing influence of technology. Now, with that in mind, I will be talking to our panel on potential problems Gen Alpha will face, why parents should not over-prioritize supporting children's learning ability over other areas of development, and will also gain insights into areas of development according to our new Anmum Essential Gold survey as we reveal what moms are least concerned of and the role of nutrition when it comes to supporting children's 8 important development. Hi there, you are still watching Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. Joining me right now are Dr. Rajini Sarvananthan, Consultant General and Developmental Paediatrician, and Dr. Yong Junina Fadzil, Consultant Paediatrician and Pediatric Cardiologist, who both see parents, especially mothers, on a day-to-day basis in their daily consultation work. So let's get right into it, doctors. To help us better understand children's general growth and development, Dr. Yong Junina, perhaps you could tell us briefly what the development is like for a child from 1 to 6 years old.
A lot of changes take place between the ages of 1 to 6 years old, both physically as well as developmentally. And in order for a child to grow up and to develop, It is important that they receive balanced nutrition. Now, what we're looking at when we talk about a child's development can be divided into gross motor, fine motor, social, speech, as well as cognitive development. So, from the age of 1 year to the age of 6 years of age, a child goes from being able to walk to running, jumping, and even pedaling a tricycle. And in terms of fine motor, from being able to pick a small raisin, the child then progresses to being able to scribble, draw, and write. And later on, they even pick up skills like playing musical instruments and other things requiring dexterity. In terms of social skills, a child learns to interact and play with others. But before that, they also have to develop their speech and understanding. And that's when they go from being this adorable babbler who just babbles around the house saying things that we don't understand to a chatterbox that sometimes drives moms and dads up the wall. These milestones, however, are not independent of each other. Rather, there is interdependency between these skills.
So, if I'm understanding it correctly, a child progressively develops from 1 to 6 years, and the skill sets that they acquire are dependent on one another in their developmental journey. Also, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Yong Junina, how good health is the foundation to develop an all rounded child. And I'd just like to take a moment to once again highlight the 8 important areas of development parents may want to take into consideration. We've got healthy physical growth in tandem with what you mentioned earlier as well, Doctor, gross and fine motor skills, good gut health to absorb nutrients for overall growth and development, and good body resistance to stay protected from diseases, which is super, super important right now. Stimulation to support development of cognitive skills and to help develop a child's ability to learn. Healthy eye development, as we know, good vision supports both the ability to focus and learn, and something which all young children need in this increasingly digitized world: speech and interaction with people, starting with parents, caregivers, and family to support them in both social development and emotional development. Now, interestingly, based on a survey conducted by the new Anmum Essential Gold recently, amongst 304 Malaysian mothers with children aged between 1 to 6 years of age, 9 out of 10 moms agreed that there are many areas of the children's growth and development that they need to support beyond just learning ability. So, in other words, the survey reveals that moms do recognize the need to support their children's all rounded growth and development. The question is, are they doing it? Dr. Yong Junina, what are your thoughts on the findings of the survey? And based on your expertise and observation, do you think parents today are over prioritizing their children's learning ability and brain development?
I think every parent starts off their parenthood journey wanting the best for the child and wanting a holistic development for the child. Every parent dreams that each of their children can achieve the proper milestone in each domain, but sometimes it just becomes overwhelming. There's just so much you need to do for your child that a parent tends to focus on what they perceive as being important. And more often than not, it is something that is tangible, something that they can measure, and eventually it falls back on academic achievements and brain development. So previously, when my children were younger, I noticed that a lot of parents were already sending their children for tuition after primary school. Today, we find a lot of parents looking for enrichment classes for children who are not yet in primary one. In terms of development, also, it is much easier to compare your children's achievements against others thanks to social media. Parents can now post what their children can do, and other parents can also do the same, and then the comparison begins. Like even classes like dance, music have taken a competitive and academic age where children are now put in exams from a very young age, and their success and ability to play an instrument is now gauged based on the results they obtain during exams. In terms of speech and communication, more often than not, I find that a child's ability to speak, when I ask, is limited to the ability to count 1 to 10, for example, or my child can count up to 15, Or a parent just says, okay, what color is this? And what is this? What is this? Without actually communicating with the child. So I think we've got to work a bit more on that as well to raise the parental awareness, because all too often they're consumed with achievements and the tangible milestones. Again, through my experience with my own children, I find that it is important to expose them to activities that allow them to socialize with other children instead of just concentrating on activities to promote academic results.
So, Dr. Yong Junina, so what you're saying is that today's parents do show signs of over-prioritization when it comes to their children's learning ability, focusing probably too much on, achieving milestones faster and getting high scores in music and other exams as well. And I am with you on everything that you've just said earlier because I can relate to that as a parent myself. Even for me, I have to consciously tell myself not to overschedule my kid and allow my kid to just be a kid. Because in this day and age, it feels like the world is moving at such a rapid pace, especially like what you said earlier as well. I completely agree with technology. It makes it easier for you to see or hear about what other people's children can do or and things that they are capable of. And then all of a sudden, you start to compare and get worried that your child might be left behind, hence the over prioritization in learning ability. So, Dr. Rajini, what is your take on this?
Well, Megan, you're not alone. I think there are so few who tend to push that learning aspect. But I want parents to take a step back and look at your children as a whole, and that they grow and develop as a whole. And like what Dr. Yong Junina mentioned earlier, the different areas of development are not independent of each other, but they are interdependent on each other. And it's important for parents to actually mindful that the different activities and stimulation that you provide for your children should be holistic, so that all areas of development are stimulated and not lagging behind in one area and maybe exceeding skills in the other, because at the end of the day a child has to develop holistically. And if you look at it in terms of a child's brain, it is still growing, and growth, 1 to 3 years old, it continues through the childhood years. And how it continues is connections are formed between these different brain cells that are already there. And the brain has like trillions, billions of connections that need to be formed to allow that child to develop holistically.
Of developmental aspects that parents may not pay much attention to, the Anmum Essential Gold survey also found that 64% of moms don't view their children's social and emotional development as their priority, and 34% of them simply do not know how to support their children in this area. Dr. Rajini, perhaps you could shed some light on this?
Yeah, I think parents need to understand that positive social and emotional development in early childhood is so important. It's sort of the keystone to a child developing his or her own self-confidence, empathy, being able to develop meaningful and lasting friendships, that sense of importance and value of themselves and how they affect those around them. And these are the building blocks in terms of them later on having to develop relationships as teenagers, as adults even. And a child's social and emotional development also influences other areas of development. I think many parents don't really understand this conversation, because how does it happen in a young child? And it starts by that child understanding who they are, what they are feeling, what to expect when they interact with each other. And they do this by forming those and sustaining those positive relationships in their lives. They do this by experiencing and managing and expressing emotions, exploring and engaging the environments that they live in, and also the environments that they face on a day-to-day basis, the community around them. And what's important is that parents, stable caregivers, they play the biggest part in allowing that child to develop this social and emotional skills, because it's through these consistent relationships that they have with their carers, parents especially, that children explore and test out these different emotions, and see what works. Consistent experiences with other family members, teachers, other adults in their peers, their friends, their siblings. All this helps them to learn about relationships, explore their emotions in a predictable interaction. And through that, they then realize, if I behave in this particular way, that allows the other person to respond in a certain way. Okay. And my advice to parents is don't neglect this important aspect of your child's development, because what you do with them in these early years is what then influences their responses as they grow up. So pay more attention to these quality interactions and communication with children on a daily basis, depending on their age. It takes more time, but really it's, investing in your child's future, because the research actually shows that children who are mentally healthy tend to be happier. They show greater motivation to learn. They have a better, more positive attitude towards school. They participate more in their classroom and demonstrate higher academic performance than peers who are less mentally healthy. And so we're back to what you were saying earlier about parents focusing on learning. Well, indirectly, if you want your child to learn better, you should be focusing on all areas of development, and don't forget this social emotional development.
Well said. Thank you so much for that, doctors. Now, on that note, stick around with us as we explore the social and emotional development in early childhood and its association with emerging mental health issues among teenage children. Welcome back. This is Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. In the previous segment, we spoke to Dr. Rajini Savanandan and Dr. Yong Junina Fadzil on how Malaysian parents today are over-prioritizing their children's learning ability over other areas of development, such as social and emotional development, which is amplified by a recent survey among 304 Malaysian mothers, as 64% of them say social and emotional development are not their priority. Therefore, we want to dive deeper into this subject because, as per what Dr. Rajini mentioned in the last segment, positive social and emotional development is the keystone to shaping a child's confidence, empathy, value, and the ability to develop meaningful relationships. And there are also suggestions that it may affect children's mental health later in life, which is why we have just the right person to join us in this segment, Dr. Alvin Ng Lai Un, Professor, Department of Psychology from Sunway University. Dr. Alvin, perhaps you could kick off this topic by explaining if there truly is a linkage between childhood social and emotional development and emerging mental health problems during adolescence.
Oh, thank you, Megan. There's definitely a link between early childhood experiences and emerging mental health problems in adolescence and even in adulthood. We know from global research that, research have been consistently showing that there is substantial proportion of mental health problems in adults that start from early life experiences. For example, if you have got any kind of adverse childhood experience, it can actually be pretty long lasting, beyond just childhood and adolescence. It goes into adulthood. You can have childhood trauma, for example, affecting biological and psychosocial development. towards adulthood. For example, you can even get physical stunting, learned helplessness, mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, delayed adaptive functioning, executive functioning, meaning they have difficulties planning, organizing. So lots of problems can start from childhood. And talking about mental health problems in adolescence and even in emerging adulthood, the WHO, the World Health Organization, predicts that by 2030, more people will be affected by depression than any other health problems. I mean, that says quite a lot about risk of mental health issues these days. And it's even more important to ensure that our children grow up as mentally healthy as possible. And this has a lot to do with social and emotional development. Because as we know it, the global prevalence of mental health problems in children aged 1 to 5 is about 17%. That's almost 1 in 5. So if you pick 5 neighbors and 4 of them have children that are okay, yours may be it. And the kinds of problems that we tend to see in children 1 to 5 are mainly relationship kind of problems, having attachment difficulties, depression and anxiety. Yes, you do get them as young as 18 to 24 months. We also have a lot of behavior regulation problems such as attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, and also feeding related problems. In Malaysia alone, there's about 8% of children from 5 to 15-year-old who have mental health issues, and mainly due to poor interaction, poor social emotional development with their parents and family.
Oh dear. So parents, if you happen to belong with the 64% who may not have prioritized social and emotional development before, you might want to pay close attention right now, because at times it's not because we don't recognize the importance of social and emotional development. We perhaps fail to prioritize it because we simply do not know how. So with that said, Dr. Alvin, how can parents support their young children's social and emotional development, especially now that we are spending more time at home with our children due to the pandemic? Would you say that it is better for the child emotionally to have the parents there all the time, or does it create more stress and anxiety for both parents and child?
It can be good, it can be bad, it can be both. It depends on how you manage the situation. We are now in what we call a new normal. And new normal means new problems. And new problems mean we need to have new solutions. So we're all new at this. And we need to make the best of the situation to adapt together with your children. And adapting would require a lot of adjusting to one another. But what's really important to focus on in relating to your child is to allow them to have a strong sense of belonging to you. And that helps your child feel secure. And security is something that we all need to feel, especially from young, because if you feel insecure, it also means that your worldview of how things are around you may not be very safe. That can be very anxiety provoking. On top of feeling a sense of belonging, there's also a very strong need for us to provide a sense of ability in our children. Because when we feel that we are able to do something, it's a nice confidence to have, because even if there are any problems, you can at least have the confidence to know you can try to solve the problem. You are not totally helpless. And because you are able to do something, you also have this sense of usefulness, being useful within like a family, being useful to anyone else, to yourself. And this sense of ability and sense of usefulness would then go back to the whole sense of belonging, basically security as a whole. So if we are able to provide this sense of belonging to our children, it can help them develop, well, I suppose, better mental health. And some of the ways of going about it is just to provide them with opportunities to show that they are able to do something, that they are useful. Telling them thank you for doing this. Wow, you can do that. Oh, okay. Did you get that yourself? Awesome. So little bits like that to help them, I suppose, adapt also. And if there are difficulties, then it's a good opportunity then for you to solve the problem together, like group think, get them to come up with potential solutions, give it a try, even though it doesn't work, never mind. You're going through the process, and from there, your children get to see how it's done. And when they know how it's done, they automatically have this sense of ability that they know what to do. And that contributes to a sense of belonging in a way that provides them with a sense of security. So I suppose, we can talk about sense of wellness in that sense. Lots of senses. I hope I make sense.
In fact, you do make sense.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for that, though. So, praises are important acknowledgements and being encouraging. What about you, Dr. Rajini? What would your advice be to parents when it comes to supporting the social and emotional development of children 1 to 6 years old?
I think I want to stress again about, the feeling of security, these secure relationships that I mentioned earlier, and Dr. Alvin has also again talked about. The other thing is also for parents to be aware about their own emotions and how they express their emotions, and also look at your children then and assessing it. Quite often, children sort of mirror what their parents do to some extent. We need to acknowledge our children's emotions, reflect back to them what they're feeling. So, if they're throwing a tantrum because they didn't get something they wanted, you can say to them, I know you're angry. You didn't get your ice cream, show them how they can express their feelings in words. And then this way, children then start to use words to express their emotions rather than acting up through their behaviors. And let your child understand, how their expressions of their emotions is affecting other people. When they're having a major tantrum while everybody's having a nice meal, everybody stops and can't enjoy their meal. So, little ways of trying to solve their disappointments. And when that child has stopped having that tantrum, acknowledge that, hey, you did a good job, you calmed yourself down. Do this repeatedly. It's not a one-off modeling or a one-off that you expect your child to learn everything from that one time that you do it. And that, understanding self-control is important, and that we need to positively encourage them to control their impulsive behaviors or needs and regulate their emotions and behaviors as well.
At the end of the day, it's all about acknowledgement and explanation and also just modeling good behavior to them. So thank you so much for those tips, Dr. Rajini and Dr. Alvin as well. But right now we have Wendy Goh, who is the Scientific and Nutrition Manager from Fonterra Brands Malaysia, to share with us the role of nutrition in a child's overall growth and development. And since we're on the topic of social and emotional development, Wendy, does nutrition directly influence these two areas of development?
Social and emotional development is a change over time in children's ability to respond to and interact with their social environment. So to answer your questions, Megan, good nutrition has positive impact on social and emotional development. Nutrients like NFGM plays a role in children's behavior. NFGM is milk fat globule membrane. Essentially, this membrane contains ganglioside GA, phospholipids, and other bioactives. Scientific study has shown improvement on emotional and behavioral regulations in children supplemented with NFGM. Children with better behavioral regulation skills have better early literacy, vocabulary, and math skills.
So in order to support their social and emotional development, it's not just about using the right words, modeling good behavior, but the right nutrition is also just as important. Thank you so much, Wendy. And coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Dr. Rajini about children's eye development and vision and how it affects their ability to focus and learn. Stay tuned. Welcome Welcome to the third segment of Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. In this segment, we are going to focus on our children's beautiful peepers. Joining me is Dr. Rajini Savananthan, Consultant General and Developmental Paediatrician, to tell us more about healthy eye development and vision and its impact on children's ability to focus and learn. Dr. Rajini, based on a survey conducted by the Anmum Essential Gold, recently among 304 Malaysian mothers with children 1 to 6 years of age, 7 out of 10 Malaysian mothers do not bring their children for vision examination, even though they recognize the importance of eye development and good vision to support their children's focus and learning. So perhaps you could enlighten us. How important is eye and vision examination, and how often should parents get their children's eyes checked?
So extremely important, Megan. We as doctors do screen children's visions through assessing their developmental skills when they come for their immunizations, or even when we're chatting with parents and we're playing with kids. Indirectly, we are trying to see whether or not there are any problems with the eye or the vision. But I would advocate that children from 4 years old should be formally screened for any visual problems. And if parents are at all concerned, for example, if that child is clumsy, seems to be tripping over things, it could be that that child's vision is affected, and that's why they're not perceiving things appropriately. Or if the parents see a squint at any age, they must seek further evaluation. So don't wait till that child's 4 years old. So if you don't have any concerns, still screen your child at 4 years old for visual problems, if there are any concerns about their visual skills.
So how does vision impact a child's ability to focus? Because as we know, it is an important aspect for understanding the world around them and learning in general. So how does it affect a child's ability to focus?
We know, for example, if children have visual impairment, they can have delays in all areas of their development. For example, like I mentioned earlier, a child who may be short-sighted, for example, they may have difficulties focusing on things that are being taught to them at a distance. Or if a child is sighted, they may have difficulties even coming downstairs. And children with refractive errors, that is long-sightedness or short-sightedness, astigmatism, when there's a problem with the curvature of the eyeball, or if they have a lazy eye, it can affect their fine motor coordination, their dexterity, their manipulation, and indirectly it then affects their emotions, or even sometimes how they communicate what they see with other people. Like I said, they can have difficulties with depth perception, and that makes them clumsy. And then, if you're clumsy, sometimes your friends laugh at you. That can indirectly affect your self-esteem. And everything has a knock-on effect. And definitely will have difficulties developing literacy and numeracy skills if they have difficulties integrating what they see visually. When we learn to read, it's about looking at the form, listening to the sound, putting that together, and the same with writing as well. And we often see that children who have visual problems, which are not corrected, that kind of result in attention problems, learning disabilities, depending on the severity of the visual problem. And as I said earlier, all this then affects a child's behavior sometimes, where they start to avoid activities and situations that they find challenging. And children cannot sometimes tell you that there's something wrong with my vision, mum. Maybe older children can, but if we're talking to that age group 1 to 6, they have been seeing the world differently, and sometimes they may not understand that the reason why they're falling over is because they're not seeing very well. So that's why we need to screen their vision.
So it goes beyond just learning ability and focus. You talk about self-esteem as well and behavioral problems. And with an increasingly digitized world, it is inevitable for the Gen Alpha to spend time on screen. I mean, for instance, during the MCO period, children have no choice but to spend more time on screen for either e-learning or even for us parents, we have no choice but to allow screen time to keep them occupied, especially parents who have to work from home or have no help at all. So, how does extended screen time affect young children's eye development and vision?
So, extended screen time has always been associated with children having dry eyes that then cause irritation. Because another thing is when children focus a lot on screens, that makes the lens in your eye less flexible when you focus on distant objects, especially if you don't have that balance of, screen time and playing outdoor. And that shows that the reduced outdoor daylight exposure, that affects that developing eye. And so children are then predisposed to short-sightedness or myopia. So that's something that research has shown with extended screen time as well.
And I'm pretty sure you get this question asked a lot as well. How much screen time in a day should be allowed for children 1 to 6 years old?
We tend to follow the recommendations by the American Association of Paediatrics, which actually recommends no more than an hour of screen time daily for children between 2 and 5 years old. And beyond 5 years old, actually the recommendation, so if you're talking like your 6-year-old, it's actually 1 to 2 hours of screen exposure. That's the point, that we don't want kids to just be babysat in front of a screen. And it's very important that we get our kids to take frequent breaks and if possible, not to watch that 1 hour continuously all the time. Our pediatric ophthalmologists often tell our patients, try and follow the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, make your child take a break for at least 20 seconds, make them look at something that's 20 feet away, and just make sure they blink at that time as well. So
that's a really good tip. 20-20-20. Now the challenge is to get the child away from the screen after 20 minutes because they usually want more and more and more. But Thank you so much, Dr. Rajini. Now that we understand the importance of healthy eyes, let's find out the right nutrition for the eyes to help children stay focused. Wendy, please enlighten us.
Thanks, Megan. Dr. Rajini mentioned earlier that children who have visual impairments and are not corrected earlier on can result in difficulties with developing literacy and numeracy skills and can have problem integrating what they see visually. So this can result in attention problems, meaning the ability to stay focused and learning disabilities. 80% of children's learning is done through visions. Nutrients like vitamin A is essential for the eyes to function, and DHA is a key component of all cell membranes and is found in abundance in the brain and retina. So DHA is important for visual acuity or the sharpness of the vision. One of the hardest things for children to learn is the ability to stay focused. Focus is key developmental area that needs a lot of practice. It is an essential skill, especially when children start school. Nutrients like iron is important for red blood cell formations and to carry oxygen to all parts of the body, including the brain. Iron deficiency has been linked to poor sustained attention and memory. So do ensure your school children have sufficient iron to help them stay focused.
Right, got it. Vitamin A, DHA, and iron. Thank you so much, Wendy, and of course to Dr. Rajini as well. Okay, we've covered about the eyes. Now, what does the gut have to do with our immune system? We'll answer that when we come back with Dr. Yong Junina. Hello, you're still watching Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. In this fourth segment, we have Dr. Yong Junina Fadzil, consultant pediatrician and pediatric cardiologist, to share with us the topic of gut health and its role in supporting children's immune system. Now back to our findings of the new Anmum Essential Gold survey among 304 Malaysian mothers. 9 out of 10 moms are aware of prebiotics, which helps to improve gut function and support a good immune system. Dr. Yong Junina, can you tell us more about the connection between our gut and our immune system, and how does a child's gut health support the immune system?
I think, as you rightly pointed out, Megan, most parents have heard of probiotics and prebiotics, but in a lot of cases, they're confused. What is probiotics and what is prebiotics? So basically, probiotics are good bacteria that live in our gut, probiotics, and prebiotics is the food for this good bacteria of probiotics. So prebiotic is the food for probiotics, and probiotics are good bacteria that live in our gut. And this colony of bacteria actually establishes themselves in our gut from a very young age. But studies have shown that you can actually alter the community when the child is still young, say about before 4 or 5 years of age. After that, it gets that bit harder to alter. And the importance of these gut bacteria is that they help to protect us from infection that can be transmitted through the gut. And 70% of our immune system is actually in the gut. And if we don't have a healthy colony of gut bacteria, then we are less protected against certain infections.
I see. So protecting the gut health is super, super important. So thank you so much, Dr. Yong Junina, for those useful tips. All right, now that we know how important it is that we have good gut health, it's on to Wendy for some nutritional tips for the gut and immune system. So over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Megan. There are over 200 trillion bacteria in our guts. It is made up of good and bad bacteria. We need to ensure that a balance is maintained, because when good bacteria is reduced, bad bacteria can take over, making us feel sick. Thus, inculcating healthy eating habits among children is important to maintain a good gut health. Increase your child's fiber intake by including more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and prebiotics rich foods in their daily diet. Prebiotics such as fructooligosaccharides, phos, and inulins are dietary fibers that serve as food for the good bacteria and encourage their growth for good intestinal environment. With a good gut environment, this will help in terms of digestion, absorptions of nutrients, as well as supporting strong immune system. A strong immune system is key for protections against infections. A healthy balanced diet, physically active, good sleep, enough water intake, all this contributes to health and thereby to immunity. Thus, provide your child with a variety of food from various food groups such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, milk and milk products, meat, fish, poultry, legumes, to enable him or her to obtain the important nutrients such as vitamin A, C, A, D, iron, zinc, and selenium to support his or her immune system. However, sometimes I know it could be challenging when introducing a new food for your children, especially when they are picky eaters. Therefore, making meals interesting is helpful to encourage your children to try out new types of food. Involving your child in food preparations also help to increase the chances your child will taste his or her own creations. Have a child to assist you with measuring, pouring, stirring, or even as simple as washing vegetables.
There you go, parents. Just get your children involved when it comes to the preparation of the meals. Make it exciting and interesting. I've heard from a fellow parent that, in order to encourage your child to eat the things that you want them to eat, just don't give it to them. You eat it. They'll be curious enough to ask for it. So there you go. Those are all the tips that were given to you by Wendy and Dr. Yong Junina. Thank you so much. When we return, we will wrap things up with all of our panelists and hear what they have to say about the need for parents to support Gen Alpha's all-rounded growth and development. Stay tuned. Welcome to the final segment of Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout these conversations. If you're still here, it means Like me, you're a concerned parent with regards to your child's all-rounded growth and development. So let's hear it from each one of our experts one last time on the advice that they may have for parents like us. Let's begin with Dr. Yong Junina.
Of course, most parents look for academic success, but academic success isn't everything. There's no point in having straight A's, but the individual is unable to work with others. Then he can't utilize those skills. And in order for him to put his good grades to use, he's got to be able to interact with other people and basically be a team player. But there is no subject called team player 101 in school, and you're not graded for being a team player. Similarly, if a child wants to indulge in something or he wants to delve deeper into something, we need to sustain that interest. And there's no better way to sustain interest than to encourage him and to allow him to have first-hand experience or hands-on experience. So going to the park, going to bird park, going to the zoo to see the animals, going to planetarium, sitting in that capsule where astronauts get to sit. We actually have that in our planetarium. That will help to broaden his mind, inspire him to think, and trigger his curiosity so that he goes back, he may read more about it and he wants to learn more about it. And from there, he can branch off in other things. But in order for you to have a pleasant trip and not one with the child rolling on the floor screaming because he doesn't get to do something, he has to be taught social etiquette and social limits. He's got to learn things like taking turns. You can't just barge to the front because you want to. You've got to wait for your turn. You've got to know that you can't touch certain things because there's a do not touch sign there for whatever reason, whether it is delicate or whether it is dangerous to the child. Again, these are not things that we can learn in the classroom or from books. This comes from exposure, from experience, and from repeated reminders.
I love that, Dr. Yong Junina, and I will bear that in mind and take my son out more often because I do agree with you. That's how they learn about the outside world and, when it comes to social etiquette. So that is really, truly the best way to learn. What about you, Dr. Elvin? What final advice would you give to parents like us about supporting our children's overall growth and development?
Well, I totally agree with Dr. Yong Junina. Whatever she said is definitely something to be taken in. I would like to also echo her by saying that, we need to look beyond grades when it comes to children's education. Grades can get you scholarships, can get you a lot of attention when you want to go for further studies. But apart from academia, apart from studying, or maybe even quality assurance, there are no grades in life. Grades can be very nice acknowledgement of your academic performance. They can also blind you to the need to function in society, just like what Dr. Yong was talking about. Because sometimes when you think you're an A student, you forget that you still would need a lot of improvement, as you go on in life. You're not perfect. So there's a lot of need to develop life skills, such as executive functioning, thinking skills, planning, prioritizing, organizing, coordinating, innovating, being creative, and of course, making friends. Dr. Yong Junina talked about friendship. Friendship and social skills are very, very important for survival. You can have good grades, but if you don't know how to make friends, you're not going to be very relevant. So friendship making, socializing, knowing how to have social health is one of the single most important factor for quality of life. We know this from research also. It's not so much about your physical health, your wealth. It's about who's around you, who's meaningful, and knowing what to do about it. And just like how you make friends, you don't ask for your friend's academic transcript right before you make friends with them, or their CV. So definitely we need to look beyond grades, and think about, of course, your children's future employability. Scoring A's doesn't tell any employer that they are adaptive or that they are relevant. If you can do the job, you get the job. If you are able to be resourceful and innovative in solving problems, you get to keep the job. So basically, there are no grades for knowing, doing, being, living together. But what there is lifelong learning, to adapt, to share resources, for mutual adaptation, mutual benefits, to be respectful of each other, to be kind, compassionate. These are very, very important skills and attitudes to have to stay relevant, to thrive. So grades may be momentary, but skills are for life. So get skilled beyond grades, be adaptive, and stay relevant.
Wow, very well said. Kindness, empathy, respectful, all of those things that we definitely need to instill in our children beyond just the good grades. And last but not least, what about you, Dr. Rajini? Would you like to add on to what the other two doctors have just said?
I think what I'm going to say has been said, but I'm going to say it again. I think as Dr. Yong mentioned, children develop as a whole, and we cannot separate learning from communication, from emotions, from adaptive skills. It's a package, and when we think about nurturing our children, think about developing all these skills. Think about developing your child as a whole. The right brain can't live without the left brain, and vice versa. So it's not about what activities enhance both, but just let them enjoy what they're doing and develop their own passions sometimes. And of course, growth and nutrition are important aspects of a growing child, as this impacts their overall development. And I think parents need to work on exposing their children to eating whole foods, nutritious foods, make them enjoy it and not treat it as something to feed your brain. We know now the gut and the brain are no longer separate entities, and one influences the other. And I really think we need to think about the social, emotional, intellectual and spiritual health of our children. We see so many of our teens and young adults with mental health issues, and the recent COVID-19 has put a lot of stress on people. And developing these skills, the social emotional aspect of us, it starts at home and the experiences that we provide for our children. So just like what Dr. Yong said and what you mentioned, Megan, get your kids out there, let them learn from the real world. Children learn in contextual settings, meaning they have to experience it for it to really stick. And remember that these experiences are more meaningful when we are involved. So rather than outsourcing to a class all the time, it's not just about these enrichment classes or tutoring that our children gain from. And it's also about how much interest we show in what they've learned and how we interact with people in their lives. Our children are always watching us, and we must be mindful of how we deal with other people as well, because they model our behaviors. They learn about managing emotions. They mold their character based on what they see on a day-to-day basis. What I'm talking about is the time that we were all sort of locked down in our houses when we couldn't step out. It showed us how important we are as parents, I think, in our children's lives. How much did our children really pick up from their online classes, do you think, compared to what they experienced with us? Cooking we did together, the games we played together, the movies we watched together. And many families that I work with have told me how they found that their children didn't engage well with their teachers or therapists online, but picked up the skills when they as parents demonstrated it. And I would say bravo. And this is what we want. We want our children to learn from real life experiences. And we are their teachers, we are their parents, and we are their punching bags, and we should be there for them. So that's my say.
You said, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, there is always a silver lining to even with the whole, just like what you say with the COVID-19 pandemic situation. It took the world to stop, lock us in, for us to stop and think about what's truly important, the connection that we build as a parent with our children, the bond, and what should we focus on when it comes to supporting their overall growth and development. So with that in mind, I will definitely not be too carried away, teaching him his 1, 2, 3s and ABCs. My son is only 2.5 years old. And thank you so much for all of your advice. I will definitely take it to mind and to heart, and be sure that I provide him with, great nutrition and support him in his overall growth and development beyond just his learning ability. But before we end this conversation, there is one last thing that we'd like to talk about with Wendy. So let's bring back Wendy, because there are some alarming facts on Malaysian children in relation to their nutrition status. 1 in 5 children under the age of 5 suffers from stunting in Malaysia. And as the new Anmum Essential Gold survey reveals, half of them are not aware of this, or they're not sure if their children are stunted. So perhaps Wendy, you could tell us exactly what stunting is?
Stunting is the impaired growth and development that children experience due to poor nutrition, repeated infections, and inadequate psychosocial stimulation. Children are defined as stunted if their height for age is more than 2 standard deviations below the WHO Child Growth Standards median. Stunting can lead to a lack in cognitive and physical development, diminished mental ability and learning capacity, poor school performance, and reduced productivity, as well as poor health in adult life. There are many factors that can contribute to stunting in children. Poor nutrition is one of the key factors contributing to stunting. Thus, good nutrition is important for overall growth and development in children. For proper growth and development, children must obtain adequate amounts of energy and essential nutrients through consuming a variety of foods from all food groups.
Based on your explanation, stunting can lead to a series of problems, and we're talking about a lag in cognitive and physical development, and eventually poor performance at school and poor health as well. Just to share with you guys a little bit about what our survey has revealed, about 17% are not sure how stunting can affect a child's educational performance, and 23% of them don't even think so. So my question is, how can nutrition support the overall growth and development of a child?
Parents can look into the following nutrients to support a child's all-rounded growth and development in 8 specific areas. I will start with the first area, overall growth and development. For overall growth and development in children, good nutrition plays an important role. Thus, cultivating a good eating habits in your children will enable them to obtain all the important nutrients they need for growth and development. An easy guide for parents is to use the Malaysian healthy plate with the concept of quarter, quarter, half. Fill the first quarter of a child's plates with carbohydrate foods such as whole grains. Fill the second quarter plates with protein foods such as fish, poultry, meats, or legumes. Fill the other half plates with vegetables and fruits. To complete the meal, give your child a glass of milk or water. The second area is about learned. When a child learns, his or her brain cells will make connections inside the brain. DHA is the building block of brain cells, while gangliosides helps to form brain cells connections. The better your child's brain cells connects, the faster he or she learns and develops. Development of brain cells connection is important for memory and learning. Third area is about healthy eye development. I mentioned about vitamin A. It is essential for eye functions, and DHA is important for visual acuity, or we call it the sharpness of vision. And the fourth area, it will be stay focused. I mentioned about iron. Iron is important for red blood cell formations and to carry oxygen to the brain and help children sustain attention. Fifth area, good intestinal environment. I highlighted the importance of prebiotics such as phos and inulins. Both phos and inulins are also dietary fibers which help to promote the growth of good bacteria and for good gut health. The sixth area, stay protected. Micronutrients like vitamin A, C, D, E, iron, and zinc selenium help to support the immune system. The last 2 areas that I would like to end with are social and emotional development. Earlier on, I brought up NFGM. It is a milk fat globule membrane which contains GA, phospholipids, and other bioactives which supports children's social and emotional development.
Wow, I think that is something that a lot of parents, including myself, are not aware of, that there are nutrients that also do support the social and emotional development. So thank you so much for that, Wendy. I am definitely going to keep a lookout for all those valuable nutrients that you mentioned the next time I read the food labels. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our digital premiere. Thank you so much for watching Developing Next Gen Conversations with Professionals, created and brought to you by the new Anmum Essential Gold. I'd like to take this time to also thank all of our panel of professionals for their insightful sharing. Thank you so much to all of our doctors and to Wendy as well. Thank you so much for making time. I hope you guys watching, you're able to take away some useful information from today's conversations and that they're beneficial towards helping you support your children's all-rounded growth and development. Members of the media, should you have any questions for our professionals based on whatever that they have shared today, kindly email them and we will get them answered. Thank you once again and goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye.